Hello and welcome to today's Savvy session. Today we're going to walk through what we believe is one of the biggest unlocks for higher AOV brands, or if you have an issue with just not having enough conversion volume to actually get started with smart bidding. So today we're going to go through why we believe it's the best way to gain an edge on smart bidding. So let me just make the screen a little bit bigger. There we go. So for anyone who is new to these sessions, we do them roughly once a month. I am Andrew Lolk, and I'm the founder of Savvy Revenue. We are a Google Ads focused PPC agency where all we do is e-commerce. So we have specialized in e-commerce. Specialized in e-commerce. That sounds amazing to say twice, right? So we specialize in shopping and feed management because that's all we really do when it comes to e-commerce. We have a very, very wide search program, but compared to everybody else who does a little bit of everything, we feel that the shopping part is where we really excel. So today we're going to walk through what micro conversions is, the case for micro conversions, what I believe are good micro conversions and what I believe are bad micro conversions, why you can't hide from bad data today, why micro conversions can't be like your true North Star when it comes to the KPIs. I'm going to have to move a mouse here because otherwise I'll hit myself like 1,000 times and I will make a bunch of noise. So let me just get this out of the way. We're going to go through common mistakes, and then we're going to try to figure out how not to overcomplicate everything, because micro conversions is basically overcomplicating something that we already have a very good benchmark for, transactions. So we're going to try to figure out how to avoid overcomplicating this moving forward. Yep, with that out of the way, I wanted to talk about what micro conversions actually are. And at the end of the day, they're qualifiers. They're these small measurable actions that we can put in place ahead of a transaction to figure out, was this visit worth buying? And that's something that is becoming increasingly important if we don't have transactional data. If we can see that somebody clicks on our cable, lands on our cable product page, and then they buy that cable, more power to you. That's how it works. That's how we've done business for the last, I don't know how I've done PPC for the last 10, 20, 12 years. But sometimes we don't have enough conversions. And back in the day, we used to just say, let's just run manual bidding in that case. And it just doesn't work anymore. There's so many aspects. We'll go into them today. There's so many aspects to why you can't do that today. So that's where micro conversions come in. And that's why we believe that micro conversions can be a hidden unlock when it comes to not having enough conversions in order to run smart bidding and other things. So some of the ideas, just so we get that out of the way to what micro conversions can actually be. These are some of the ones we use the most in prioritized order. Add to carts. Often there's 3 to 5 times as many add to carts as there's actual transactions. Newsletter signups are often valuable for most brands. So I do recommend using those as micro conversions. Live chat engagements. Anybody who, again, if we go back to the actual definition, it's a qualifier. It's a measurable action. It's an action we can actually measure. That way we figure out, is this something was this visit worth buying? And if somebody goes through a live chat, they're typically interested in your product. They're typically interested in some kind of solution that your product can offer. So again, it's highly qualified traffic typically. Any website features, again, add to favorites, sign up for restocking, updates, gone through a quiz, etc. And then a big one for me is also video views. Do you have a 30-second or a 1-minute video where you explain your product? Somebody watching through that from end to end is motivated, is a qualified visit. So these are some of the top 5 micro conversions that we typically use. And again, doesn't have to be that complicated. And I'll go into a little bit further later in the day. I'll go a little bit more into detail about why I think it can be an issue with mixing too many micro conversions. So the case for micro conversions, now that we know what it is, I wanted to go into, and explain one of our cases, one of our most recent cases we've done when it comes to actually working with micro conversions. So the case is that they are selling a product heavily through affiliate or affiliates. They have a proven concept. The products work. The products are amazing. They do a lot of branded search, but they haven't found any scale in the non-branded search so far. So any prior attempts that they've had to scale search has failed. So they've all started out in this angle where they are brand heavy. Then they try to push non-brand. Let's just say a modest $20,000 monthly budget. And then there's no transactions. There's no revenue. There's nothing that comes out on the other end to say this was actually worthwhile. And they do millions through affiliate. So even 20,000 is hard to actually measure from a blended ROAS perspective. The way that their product is it's a high AOV. It's around a couple of $1,000s. And so there's a long customer journey. They have a lot of heavy last click or last interaction media running. So they have branded search, they have organic, they have email, and their biggest channel is affiliate, which is heavily, heavily, heavily focused on those last click buyers. So when it comes to actually trying to get something in the middle or a top funnel where search actually lies in this perspective, it's really, really hard to get enough data in to say, hey, this is actually producing something, because organic search will take a last click. All this, I forgot to mention, all this is measured through Google Analytics. So organic search will steal the click. Branded search and Google Ads will steal it. Affiliate will steal it. Email will steal that last interaction. No matter what we've said, and this is important, no matter what interaction we've set in as an attribution model in Google Ads, if we're importing from Google Analytics, then it doesn't use an attribution model across the different channels. It's only inside of the Google channel it uses any sort of attribution model. So this was an issue. So what we did was that we switched to micro-conversions and used the blended ROAS to verify whether or not those micro-conversions was worth it. So the way we did it, we started trying out just like they had done in the past, just using transactions. It didn't work. We didn't get enough data in, so we couldn't scale further. Then we went in and said, okay, we added the micro-conversions, and at the end of the day, we made sure that when we used micro-conversions, then we also had blended ROAS to make sure we didn't just spend more and more and more and more, and the actual revenue stayed flat. But that wasn't the case. Again, for anybody who's not familiar with the blended ROAS concept, it's this whole thing that we take all the revenue in our store, we take all the marketing spend for our store, and we say that ratio is our blended ROAS. So if we spend 20% of our revenue on marketing, and we do something like micro conversions, that's when we want to if this is supposed to be successful, then that blended ROAS needs to stay while our revenue increases. So the way it worked was that if this is for a 30-day period, so we tried to say, okay, add to carts to provide evidence to see that the traffic we're actually buying took action on our side, which over time allowed us to switch to smart bidding, which again for Google Shopping is a cheat code. It's a much better option than manual bidding. And you can see here we got 111 add to carts and a theoretical revenue of 44,000 based on those add to carts. And we ended, but in Google Analytics, we had actually only measured around 8,000 in revenue. So that was a very typical result that we were looking at, where we'd spend 17 and we had 8,000 in revenue through GA or Google Analytics. However, using the revenue that we got from the add to cart, we could see we actually drove $45,000 in revenue. Again, theoretical. That's what micro conversions are. They're theoretical. They're actually not actual revenue, but that's what I'm getting to here, is that once we then looked at the following months, we were able to actually say that our blended ROAS stayed pretty steady, but our micro conversions grew, and I can pull in the other numbers with the revenue, they also grew. So that's something where we were able to say, hey, blended ROAS stay where it is. That was the whole scheme of this thing. We need blended ROAS to stay where it is. Yes, it went up and down here. We We overinvest in October, so we get more out of November and December, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it goes up and down a little bit from month to month. So here is the numbers for overall revenue. We grew month over month over month, something that we had previously had a really tough time doing. So with paid search, using micro conversions, we actually found a way to actually grow a new channel. They still were pretty strong on affiliate, and we were then able to grow month over month over month, which was awesome. So I wanted to get into figuring out, okay, what are good and what are bad micro conversions, because I've seen it not work. I've seen it not work many times. And that's actually one of the reasons why we got into this game, because we got a little bit tired of clients trying to figure out micro conversions and telling us what to do. And we kept going, there's something wrong with what you're doing. There's something wrong with the way that you're setting it up, because the data doesn't work from a smart bidding perspective. So we re-engineered one of the attempts that one of our clients had done, and we said, okay, this is how we're actually supposed to use micro conversions or micro conversions. So, like we said from the beginning, a micro conversion acts as a proxy for figuring out whether or not the traffic you're buying is valuable or it's a waste of time. Which means that, again, these are the favorites, these are the ones I like. We're already through that. But what we haven't seen work is like Google Analytics has this features called quality visit. So it figures out, okay, what's the bounce rate, time on site, and some of the other factors to figure out, was this actually somebody worthwhile buying? We've never seen that work. That revolves into the rest. We haven't seen time on site. We haven't seen bounce rate. We haven't seen anybody using like key page views. Oh, this guy went to our FAQ. That must mean they're qualified. Or they viewed 10 different product pages. Oh, that must mean they actually worked, etc. We've never seen it actually be a factor to figure out whether or not, like, to work well as a micro conversion. Bounce rate the same. One of the reasons why, I want to see if I have it more. Nope. One of the reasons why is that I think that it's, like I say here, it's too hard to apply value to a time on site. That's one thing. But the other thing is, it's also too hard. There's also, it stacks. So somebody who's goes over 5 minutes time on your site, and you say, oh, that's worth $10. If they also do key page view with an FAQ, and they add to cart, and their low bounce rate, it stacks that value. And all of a sudden, really quick, you can take what you actually thought was something that was just a part of a bigger whole, and all of a sudden one visit that was like heavy on time on site also takes the rest of the boxes, also adds to cart, also do a key page view, also does a video view. So all of a sudden you've stacked multiple values, and then you're actually overvaluing that visit. That's what I think happens again and again and again and again when you're not sticking to what I call my favorites. But what I can also say, these are a lot easier to actually apply some kind of value for, and they don't typically stack up. So if you sign up for a restock update, you typically don't add that product to cart, etc., etc., etc. So ad data. We're going to talk about revenue tracking, what 99.9% of advertisers do, and what going beyond just revenue tracking. And this is why we're talking about micro conversions today, and this is why we can actually go into a little bit more detail. So there's 3 core things that happened in 2022 that made me revisit micro conversions. So cookie pop-ups. Well, we during 21 and further into 22, the last of our cases added a cookie pop-up. We lost cookie data. So, and that comes completely opposite of what smart bidding is doing. Smart bidding wants more data and more data and more data. So it needs a lot more data to actually be more effective. So there's not much we can do there. We can't take data away and make smart bidding more effective. On top of that, us as an agency, we've always prided ourselves on having an edge on everybody else. We were amazing at manual bidding. We've built the most complicated shopping setups we've ever seen. We do feed management to perfection. We do feed-based search ads. We were really good at what we do. But we don't have an edge on bidding anymore, because like we might be here when it had to do with manual bidding and everybody was down here that were doing it by themselves. Smart bidding pulled it up here. So smart bidding is actually beating what we can do in manual bidding. And now we're pulling it up here and says, okay, how do we work with smart bidding to make us gain an edge? So this is simply us making sure that our clients has an advantage over the rest of the competition by giving the data better, or giving the system better data. So like I said in the example here with the case we had before, but this is really micro-conversions for us. It's really focused on solving some of these issues with cookies expiring. If you have a long long customer journey for a product, let's say you sell a bed or you sell a piece of furniture or something like that, your cookies will expire. Like, it didn't used to be a big issue, and people jump more from device to device today, but cookies are expiring. If you're using something like Google Analytics, then other channels will take credit. The longer, like email, for instance, if abandoned cart email, somebody clicks there, boom, all the value goes to the email. And at the end of the day, you also cookie pop-ups, where you simply just losing the ability to track people. So you want to have something you can track within the same session that they're on the site, and not have to depend on cookies to actually remember that visitor throughout the entire customer journey when they leave your site. You need to find a way to qualify that initial piece of traffic. So this is what happens when you are ending up with when you don't implement micro-conversions. If you're solely focused on transactions and you can't really get a foothold, and we've even seen some of our bigger advertisers, this has actually happened to them after cookies started expiring, other channels took credit, and cookie pop-ups became an even bigger issue. Then they actually became this. We went from having 10x ROAS to 3x ROAS in some markets, which was scary. Which actually, it means this. So you start and you're just dead in the water. Other channels are taking credit, a little bit like the case I brought up initially. Can't prove efficiency, even when we try to increase spend. And even when we do this and we don't have enough conversions in there, then smart bidding becomes ineffective, which means we're getting further behind the rest of the competition. So, but jumping into some more practical steps with macro conversions, common mistakes. We'll go through these. There's too many. They're unverified. There's no reality check. You're not applying a conversion value. You're choosing micro conversions that are mandatory, like the user has to do them when they get to the site. It's seen happening, or you forget to switch conversion actions. So too many micro conversions means that you're going to overvalue the total sum of micro conversions. That's what we talked about before. If you both have, if you have, let's say you have choose variant on the product, like choose color, and you have add to cart. Well, you can't add to cart without doing without choosing a variant. So there's no need for this step and this step. You have to choose either or. Otherwise, you're going to overvalue the total sum of the each individual market conversions when they stack up. Yeah, that's the next. I highly recommend sticking to 1 or 2 micro conversions. Don't overdo it. You can be smart about it in the future, but 1 to 2 to begin with. And I even often just go 1. Just stick to 1 key qualifier to find out whether or not this visit was actually worth buying. There's unverified conversion values. Overvaluing conversions means you overspend. Undervaluing a conversion value means you underspend. To begin with, when you're starting out, when you put a conversion value on your micro conversion, again, if you're setting at $10 or $50 or whatever it is, we'll talk about it in a second. To begin with, it's better to undervalue than overvalue. The worst thing you want to have happen is that you are going to your CFO or your manager or anything like that and say, hey, we have this new method, we're going to do that. They're going to be, are you sure? And you go, yeah, I'm sure. Andrew said so. And then you go, and then you overvalue the conversion. So you overspend. And all of a sudden, when you look at the blended ROAS, you're like, that didn't work. You're never getting a second chance. But undervaluing micro conversions mean that you can scale a bit and see it's working, and then try to increase the value over time. It's a much better play. It's a much safer for the organization. It's much safer for you. Yeah. So start low and increase. So no reality check. I'm here to tell you, as an agency, micro conversions are bullshit. It just is. It's hot air. Your CFO won't like it. I don't like it as a business owner. They are hopefully, theoretically, a proxy for revenue, but they are not revenue. That's not like bidding for transactions where you know that you've gotten that revenue, and then there might be some attribution issues and all that stuff, but you can't lose the fact you got that revenue that you have tracked. You have tracked the transaction and there's revenue. For micro conversions, you don't have that. So you have to be a lot more careful. And that means implementing a reality check. You can't go out and increase an account spend from $20,000 a month to 50 or 100,000 on the back of micro conversions without having a reality check or a North Star KPI like blended ROAS. Your blended ROAS has to stay in check, has to stay within the boundaries that you as an organization is aiming for. Otherwise, you might look up incredibly when you're valuing micro conversions. So make sure you have this blended ROAS or any other measurement where you can just say, hey, we have increased revenue. Yes, our overall marketing spend is in line with where we want it to be as compared to the revenue. So yeah, please do that. And so you don't get, like we say in Danish, so you don't get røde ører. Not applying a conversion value. So this is something I've seen a lot happen when we've audited accounts where they've tried to do micro conversions. So Google Shopping can't do a CPA target. You can't do target CPA for Google Shopping, and Google Shopping is maybe the biggest one for all of us in e-commerce. So not having a conversion value for Google Shopping or not having a conversion value for micro conversions means that you can't use smart bidding for micro conversions in shopping. I hope that makes sense. So you need conversion values. You need to set a conversion value. I don't have it on here. How to calculate it? Or I don't have that. I should have that. Yeah, I think it might be later. If not, we'll take it in the questions. So avoid using mandatory micro conversions. We had a client that used a quiz as the landing page, and they then added that quiz as a micro conversion, and I was just like, oh, that it fucks up. It might be okay if that's all you're using, but we had a smart bidding setup that worked, that was using those micro conversions. So all of a sudden, when we're using that quiz as a landing page, and they added that quiz as something that people had to go through, we were way overvaluing because they were forced to. Because before we were saying that anybody who landed anywhere on the site and voluntarily took the quiz, they had a value of X. Now everybody had to go through the quiz. So it was still valuable. It was still really good. It was a really good quality measurement to see whether or not people had actually gone through that quiz. So it's not impossible to do. But in our case, we just severely overvalued it. And again, ruined smart bidding because it all of a sudden got too many values, too much conversion value, and it started bidding a lot higher than it should. So the last thing I want to talk about is primary versus secondary conversion actions. So in Google Ads, you can create multiple what's called conversion actions. It's basically every single conversion. So an add to cart conversion is called a conversion action, and a purchase or transaction conversion is called a conversion action. So you can create as many as you want in Google today. What you can't do, however, is, no, that's the wrong way of explaining it. You have it as a primary conversion action and a secondary conversion action. The primary conversion actions are used for smart bidding. The secondary conversion actions are not. So when you first add micro conversions, you add them as secondary conversion actions. And when you don't want to bid based on them, you want to switch over from having your primary conversion value needs to be the micro conversion and not the transactions. I'll say that again. You have two conversions: purchases, micro conversions. Purchases starts as primary, micro conversions start as secondary. Just like this. This is used for smart bidding. This is not used for smart bidding. What you want to do when you switch over to use micro conversions for smart bidding, you want to change micro conversions to primary and purchases to secondary. You still want to measure it. You still want to see it. We just want to build it in here. Switching is the trickiest part because it's account wide and it's what changes in your conversion value and all these things. It is not as tricky as it seems, but it's just something to keep on the lookout for. You cannot change a conversion action on a campaign level. You need to change and then think smart bidding uses it. I've made that mistake. You need to change micro conversions into a primary conversion action. Otherwise, it will not be used for smart bidding, no matter what you set at the campaign level. So make sure you set a primary conversion action on your micro conversions and remove it from the transactions. That means you're going to do it for your entire account. That's something to keep in mind. If you don't want to do it for your entire account, then you can still make micro conversions into your primary conversion action. However, you need to go through every single campaign and make sure that one is using transactions as the conversion action and others are using micro conversions. Very important. You need to do all of them or you'll overvalue. Don't overcomplicate it. That's what I wanted to end with. As you can hear, like this part is maybe the most complicated from a technical standpoint, but it's definitely doable. It's not a big deal. Don't overcomplicate it. Track add to cart conversions and just get started today. It's super easy. You can get it from Google Analytics. Even GA4 is possible to do it in. So you can track it super fast and then you can get moving on it. And what I always like to say is at least add it to the account. Like you don't have to use it. You don't have to use it for bidding initially. Just try to add that extra data point to your account so you can actually see how many add to carts a campaign that maybe have very few conversions are producing. And then you can try to say, hey, what happened? Like we have 100 or 200, 300 add to carts, but only 5 or 10 or 20 conversions. What would happen if we change this to just track the add to carts and set an equivalent value for it? So that was it for us today. So I have questions coming up in 2 seconds. Just want to do a quick plug. We are Cyber Revenue. We are scaling paid search for B2C e-commerce stores across Europe. Our biggest market by far is Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, but we have some pretty heavy businesses both in the UK and the US, and we are tapping into Germany. So if anybody has any questions or would like to know how we work or would like a free audit or just an input on how they're doing it, we both do one-time audits, we take over your entire account, or we do ongoing coaching with your team. So we're here anytime you want anything when it comes to search. So for questions, this has been submitted ahead of time. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll make sure we get to them over time. Do you have any experience with using Google store visit conversion for e-commerce stores that also have physical stores, and how would you use it? So we've had a couple of cases where it's been very successful, and I've also been part of seeing a couple of cases where it was even more successful. The key that I would say is to add the data. And it works a little bit like a micro conversion, but adding the data either through Google store visits, or there's also a new implementation called store sales implementation. So you can actually get your store's sales into your Google Ads account. It's a beta. It's really, really cool. And if you can somehow associate them through a loyalty card or something like that, then you can actually make something where you pull who actually bought this in the store back through enhanced conversions. You can pull it back into what they were searching for on Google. Really darn cool. So it's not just a store visit, it's actually who converted in the store. Because that's perhaps the hardest thing when it comes to store visits, is that it's not, you can't really see you can't see the actual sales. You don't know if somebody walked into your bed store to buy a mattress for $40,000 or if they went in to buy a pillow like I did when I went to Denmark last time, because I was tired of sleeping horribly. But as it's called SSI, store sales implementation. It's the worst name. That is pretty cool. I would try to get into that beta if I were you. If yeah, you can just reach out to me personally. We can have a discussion about it. The way to use it is a little bit different than micro conversion. I would actually add it as a separate primary conversion next to online conversions. We've seen that Adding both conversions mean that we actually are able to track more, and then the system gets more data. And yes, we set an equivalently higher ROAS target. So if we so far worked after a 500% ROAS target and we add store visits, we want to increase the target that we have to, like, let's say 600 or 700%, because we're getting more data in that we didn't have before. And it goes really well with the with next question, which is, can multiple action conversions, or can multiple conversion actions on the same campaign hurt performance? No, it cannot. It will actually only enrich it. And the reason why we know this is that from a lead, when you use lead generation and smart bidding, being able to add the conversion value from a conversion, or just qualifiers there that you add after the fact, or you have multiple conversion actions where you say, okay, this person submitted the lead, they got the demo, they submitted their billing info, etc. Sending all those 4 conversions back into Google as separate conversion actions works like a charm to qualify traffic. So multiple conversion actions can definitely be a huge value in terms of enriching performance. So next question is, what is the minimum amount of conversions to begin implementing smart bidding? I want to say 100. That's the minimum I've seen, and we don't work that much with it with those low levels in Savvy, but it's basically for my wife's dental clinic. I implemented smart bidding, had 100 converted. They had about 80, I think, before, and then it went up to 120, 150. It worked really, really well. So I would say around 50. Sorry, around 100 is usually where it starts making sense. If you don't have 100, I would heavily look into micro conversions. Performance Max and portfolio bid strategies. Do you believe Performance Max will be enabled for portfolio strategies in the future? Yes, I am almost 100% sure it will happen. Then there's Google Analytics and Google Ads discrepancy. Can I change this so I can actually read my own question? There. So they've seen a difference in Universal Analytics conversions and Google Ads tag conversions to be around 30%. Tags are set correct. How is this possible? So that's due to 2 things. One, Google Ads will track every conversion. The Google Ads tag will track every single conversion that happened related to that has ever had an interaction with Google Ads. The Google Analytics import or conversion will remove any conversion that have not had a last click that was Google Ads. So that's how that works. There's also the aspect of how Google Analytics works and the way that Google Ads work. Google Ads will track back to the clicks that happened, and Google Analytics will report the data, the tracking, the transaction actually happened. So you might have somebody who clicked today, but by in April, that conversion in Google Ads tracking will go back to today, while it's in Analytics and with the Analytics import will look like it's done in April. Do you think, next question, do you think micro conversions can steer Google in the wrong direction in opposite of purchase? Yes. So again, it's overvaluing. If you're overvaluing micro conversion, then Google can steer more towards those. Or if you choose the wrong micro conversion that doesn't relate to a purchase, and it's not like in the path to a purchase, then yes, you can steer wrong. I don't think it's as bad as Facebook. I've talked to a lot of Facebook guys over in the States, and they really don't like it. They've tried. Many say they've tried it, and it just makes the Facebook algorithm find non-shoppers, which I think is super odd. We haven't seen the same thing in Google Ads. Maybe it's because when you're searching for something in Google, you're already in the mindset of wanting to buy this, where on Facebook you don't have that. Next question, secondary conversions. Do you believe that Google uses secondary conversions to optimize ads in addition to primary conversions, even though they say they don't? No, they don't. And I made a mistake when I implemented micro conversions the first time. What happened was that I forgot to change secondary Like I said, I forgot to change the micro conversions into primary. The campaign went the second I did it. So, and the second I enabled it, it went up again. So it does not use it as a signal at all. What suggestions do we have for micro conversion? So we've been through them, but I thought the question was really good. So for furniture store advertisers with only offline sales, questionable value of phone calls and no form fills or other user provided data, what would you suggest tracking as conversions or micro conversions? I'd love to use local actions, directions, but Google won't seem to allow it. So you can have like store locations and stuff like that on your website. That's been seen quite a bit. I would invent a conversion. That's what I would do. Like I would invent something. Either it was the form fill or a coupon, or I would invent something on the site that I could track whether or not this was a qualified visitor. On top of that, I would look into the same store or sales store implementation beta. It looks really cool. And I would look into sales store data because they are pretty darn good and it's the closest thing you'd get to it. Next question, add to cart and transactions. Would you run micro conversions as a primary conversion in the same campaign that uses a purchase conversion? Would you then assign values for each micro conversion, and how do you come up with those values? E.g., add to cart equal to 25% of total purchase value. So I actually like this. I actually like it a lot. There is the challenge. Let me take the good parts first. One, it means that somebody who ends up buying will drive more revenue, which is a good thing. Will drive a higher like ROAS, which is really, really good. That's what you want. So those visits, so to speak, they'll be bid for higher by Google. So that's the good part. The bad part is that you are going to track things twice because somebody does an add to cart and they do a conversion and they buy something, means that you will end up bidding too high for them. There's a workaround there. You can use you can remove the add to cart conversion value if they happen at the same time and stuff like that. Could technically do that. It gets overly complicated though. But I overly like the idea of doing this. The hard part you have to figure out here is, how do you set a ROAS target? How do you make sure that Google doesn't underbid for the micro conversions? So I haven't done it yet. I would be worried about doing it just because, let's say, all of these like micro conversions that are 25% of the total purchase value or the transaction, technically Google will see all those small conversions as being much lower than what your ROAS target actually is, and it won't bid for them at the level that they're supposed to. Next one is, what do you think about privacy? No, that's an old question. Setting the best ROAS target. How do you set the proper ROAS? How do you approach it? Is the last 30 days average a good approach? No. It's a horrible approach. I know it's not horrible. So technically, the last 30 days can be good. There's just a bunch of caveats there. If you have a lot of conversion lag, which means like that the traffic you bought in the last week, you're not expecting that to convert until next week. Then using the last 30 days, your ROAS target is not gonna, like, it's gonna be set too low. If there's been any, like, let's say the last 30 days here, let's say you do it around last 30 days from December 15th. Well, there's Black Friday. You shouldn't count that. But that's a wild example, but there's micro dips and like micro dips and micro peaks happening throughout the year. So last 30 days, I'm not a fan of. For the other reason is you get, like, last 28 days is marginally better. The best way to look at it, in my opinion, is either using the last 21 days, 3 weeks typically, or last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks minus last week. So if we look at March 21st, then you would look at from March 1st to March 14th and disregard the last week because you're not sure what the ROAS is there, but the first 2 weeks, you're usually getting the right data in. That's what I would look at first. If there's something that's happened that outperforms high or low in the last week, I would consider utilizing that data as well, just in case there's some data in there that you actually want to use. Any questions at all when it comes to microconversions? If you've tried it yourself, if you have any interest in trying it, etc., try to reach out. At andrew@savvyrevenue.com. Would love to talk to anybody who's interested in running microconversions. So you just reach out. You can also do it on Twitter @AndrewLulk, or you can do it on LinkedIn. Also Andrew Lulk, funny. So anybody, just reach out to me. I'm available and we can have a chat about it.